Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to NOLA Theater Talk. My name is Alan Smason, and it's my pleasure to be with you tonight. We broadcast these live streams to our NOLA Theater Folk Facebook group, our theatercriticism.com Facebook page, not to be confused with the website, which is theatercriticism.com, but just the social media page we have on Facebook, as well as to YouTube, to my own YouTube channel. Tonight we are dealing with essentially the demise of Southern Rep. We're going to talk about what the announcement means for those of you who have been maybe not in New Orleans, not checking out your news or whatever. Basically, unless you were under a rock, you got the news last week that Southern Rep, after 36 years, is going to be shuttering its doors. The curtain will be ringing down for the final time. And we're going to get to a little bit more about what that entails later on in this broadcast when we're joined by Cameron-Mitchell Ware, who is in charge of essentially shuttering, or if you will, sunsetting the theater, and what that means, and how he's going to be doing that, and what he has been doing in the interim. But for right now, we want to first off announce to everybody our apologies. Rosary O'Neill, the founder of Southern Rep, was announced as our guest tonight, and until today was indeed a guest on the show. She is not locally located now. Where she is having a heat emergency, and unfortunately, because of that, she was unable to get on the internet and apologize very profusely. But hopefully, we can have her at a later date to talk about the history of Southern Rep. But in her place, very nicely, we have not only two veterans of Southern Rep from its early days, but we have, I think, two ladies who can fill in those gaps and help where perhaps Rosary would have been able to talk about her own personal, I guess you might say, accent and what she was dealing with in terms of her own agenda. These are people whose careers were actually started at Southern Rep. So I'm going to bring in first off the eminent director, Tomi Myrick, and congratulations. Thank you for being with us tonight, Tomi. Again, you started, as I mentioned, your career at Southern Rep. You're now a very well-known, highly regarded director, but you got your first opportunity, I guess, to direct at Southern Rep?
No, it wasn't. It was my first opportunity to work with Southern Rep. How about that? No, okay. I was directing in New York before I moved back home. And then I had the opportunity to direct at Southern Rep, and a show produced by them. But my very first directing job here in the city was one that was produced by me, which was Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill.
And I know it well. Yeah.
Wanda Roseanne and Ellis Marcellus. Then the next one after that, Southern Rep was the first theater to really reach out to me.
Well, again, I'm so appreciative of you being in here, and I don't want to say replacing, but filling in for Rosary, since Rosary O'Neill was the founding artistic director of the Southern Rep. You got to work with her, as did our other guest that we're going to have coming in right now, who is Soline Holmes. Soline's mom. A lot of people will remember, her work as a costume designer, and just had been in theater for a long time. And Soline, you, I think you mentioned that you were directed. Is that right, by Tomi?
Yes, at Southern Rep, in Member of the Wedding. That was one of my, I guess, formative roles as a kid. Was Frankie in Member of the Wedding, and I had also previously done The Miracle Worker. With Maria Mason, and
there we go.
Yes,
that's all right.
And I was actually in the first show in the Canal Place space. It was Cat on a Hudson Roof, and Joe Warfield directed it. Yes, Joe Warfield directed it. Audley Keck was in it. He was Big Daddy, and the theater wasn't even really finished yet as we were coming to the start of opening night. And I remember we were in these dressing rooms of a store that was next door to change because that part wasn't finished yet.
So Rosie would have told me about how her early days were, where they were. I think that first time that they had a play was at the Bourbon Orleans Hotel, and it was in a room that was maybe not the best for theater, but they made use of it as best they could. Where was it located, Tomi, when you started working?
It was located in Canal Place.
Okay.
The 100-seat theater, rectangular in shape, but it was a very wholesome, a very warm place to direct in and work in. I enjoyed that space a lot.
Yeah. Now, if you're talking about the way it ended up, it was almost 300 seats by the time it ended. So was it a smaller space and they added seats to it? Is that?
I don't know. Soline, can you address that?
I mean, I know sometimes, the stage was interesting for sightlines because the stage was like this triangle sort of. So you always had to be aware as a performer of like the audience on the other side. And I know sometimes at the center of that triangle, kind of like the lighting and sound booth was right
in the center of it.
We would add seats. I know for Miracle Work, or probably for Remember the Wedding, we added seats in there too. So I was young. I was like 10. I didn't think about things like head counts and.
Well, I know that when they moved over to the new space on St. Rose de Lima, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but they had downgraded from almost 300 seats to 135, and I remember that was a big disparity for me in my mind. So they might have started with a smaller space and then added as they went along. That's a possibility. I don't know. I'll have to defer to Rosary on the next time that we get together to find out the answer to that question. But yes, they were at Canal Place for 19 years.
19 years.
And they lost their lease sometime around 2012 or so, and that started about a 6-year search for a new home, and they finally got to move into the new place on, as I mentioned, St. Rose de Lima Church that had been, I guess you might say, repurposed. And there were a couple of people who got together. Obviously they have organizations that do these sorts of things, and they develop the property, and they offered it to Southern Rep, and Southern Rep, after 6 years of not having a home, decided that it was important for them to have a brick and mortar theater. So they moved into the home there on Bayou Road, a historic church, by the way. And again, anybody who doesn't know that much about it, they've renamed it the Andre Caillou Center for. I'm sorry.
The Andrew Caillou Center for Justice.
I think it's
theater and
theater and cultural justice, perhaps.
Cultural justice.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think that's what it is.
Cultural
But
justice.
and the idea being that they're going to have another theater company moving in. No Dream Deferred is going to be moving in there, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that it was announced, and I assume that that's going to still be the case, that Junebug Productions is going to be taking part in some of the productions there as well. That they were announced.
As is Voices in the Dark.
Great.
I should say too that I'm on Tommy's board. I'm the vice president of Voices in the Dark. So
okay, all right. So that's fantastic news that the space will be utilized, and even though Southern Rep may not be there any longer, that there will be theater going on. It will be important theater. It'll be theater that will be maybe more distilled towards a different audience than would normally go to some of the Southern Rep productions, but it certainly is an important audience and one that needs to be addressed. Tomi, I really wanted to sort of get into a little bit of the history with you and Soline while you're here. So tell me how it was that you were first acquainted with the Southern Rep Theater, how you heard about it, this upstart Rosary O'Neill, what she was doing out there. Was it something that you heard about through the grapevine, or did somebody contact you? Did Rosary contact you? How did that happen?
Actually, Dick O'Neill contacted me, and then I met Rosary. It was that way. But my very, very first show that I directed at Southern Rep, I believe it was Member of the Wedding, of which the little girl in that was Soline. You see how everything is full circle, and now she's vice president of Voices of the Dark. But that was the very first show, and that being sort of starring as well Carol Sutton. After that, there was A Raisin in the Sun. There was Rose Tattoo. There was a lesson before dying. There was death of a salesman.
Wow.
Flying West, Lady Day, there was this Bar and Grill, Dino was. But so my comfort zone was Southern Rep. And Rosary and Dick reaching out to me to do that was very monumental. And you can say that I would say maybe 9 seasons in a row until it changed hands from Dick and Rosary. I always directed 1 or 2 shows per season at Southern Rep.
Okay,
but you didn't ask me about the demise. So when you get there, I'd like to comment.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that in a little bit. I think we really want to start off because Rosary started in 1986. Mm-hmm. I of course used to go to a number of the shows. I would say as it got more established when it was at Canal Place, and as we said, it lost its lease in 2012. So that means that somewhere around 1993 they moved into the building at Canal Place, somewhere around that time. And they were in business between 1986 and 1993, almost 6 or 7 years that they had started, that they were somewhere else. Where were they prior to being at Canal Place? Do you remember that?
I think that, because Rosary was a professor at Loyola, and they always had this great connection between Loyola and Southern Rep. And so I think a lot of the shows were also at Loyola. I could be wrong about that.
It's possible. She was a professor, so it's very possible that that would have made sense. Yeah.
And I was actually in a show at Loyola, A Day in the Death of Joe Egg, and Rosary saw me in that and came up to me after the show and asked me if I would come audition for The Miracle Worker. And my mom always told the story that I was like, oh yeah, sure, whatever, and kind of like walked away. And she was like, don't you know who that was? That was Dr. Rosary O'Neill.
Wow.
Well, can't you mention your mother's name? Trish McLean.
Who
I definitely loved and costumed every show I directed up until her death. In 5 years ago now?
Yeah.
5 years ago. Yeah.
But I should say my mom did not do props or costumes. Southern Rep actually got her into doing that. And it was The Miracle Worker, which I just recovered this from my parents' house. But it was actually The Miracle Worker. I was 9 or 10 and she was coming to rehearsals with me because she didn't want to leave me with like scary theater people, and she had not done any props or costumes before, but she used to own an antique store. And the director of Miracle Worker, Joe Warfield, said, I don't know what we're going to do. We need a dining room table. That's the big scene, right? And my mom, she was always very quiet. She quietly raised her hand and she said, I have 3 in my basement. So Joe came to look for the dining room table, and then he's like, oh, and I want that for the set and that and that. And so she started off doing props for The Miracle Worker. And then people realized that she could sew. And so then she started doing costumes, and she was a great researcher, so could do period stuff.
And a very nice lady. I'm going to say that right out. She was very warm and welcoming to me, while I was sort of starting out, and very friendly, and always had a nice, kind word to say. And I don't know anybody who didn't love her. So I'm gonna raise my glass. We'll start talking a little bit about what we brought in the room tonight. This, by the way, there's no Southern comfort in. Somebody might have said I better, but I did go for the Wild Turkey 101 and Coca-Cola. I rarely have Coca-Cola with a drink, but tonight I'm having that because I just felt like it was probably, with the heat this summer, it's probably fine. And Tomi, what did you bring in?
I brought in my favorite, which is Fortaleza tequila. Straight. Oh my goodness.
Oh
yes.
Go south of the border.
So you're the man in charge. If I start talking crazy, just click me off.
That's all right. No, I promise. And Soline, what did you bring in tonight?
I feel like I'm still the kid in the room. But no, so I have my chai latte.
Oh, good.
I'm actually really sad about Southern Rep, and chai lattes are sort of my comfort drink. So
I love chai lattes. And of course, in Hebrew, that's chai latte. But that's a joke. But in any event, it's spelled the same way. Again, we're commiserating, if you will, the the final days, if you will, of Southern Rep, and I know through the years, Southern Rep was noted, especially for the time that Rosary handed off to Ryan Roulette, for becoming involved with new plays. I don't know that there was another production company in New Orleans that brought about as many new plays as Southern Rep did. And again, these were important plays. I remember thinking to myself, where else will we see these kinds of new plays, that are on a network? Of course, Ryan became involved with the National New Play Network. They would have rolling world premieres that would premiere, let's say, in Louisville and then in New Orleans, or they'd be out in maybe La Halle or something like that, and then come here. But the fact is that we were right on the edge of plays that were really being brought out for the first time. Sometimes, in some cases, they would actually hit our stages before they would go to New York. So, again, we were very fortunate in that. And again, playwrights of the kind of stature that you would like to see on a regular basis. We see a lot of people who write plays, who have their works produced on a regular basis, who have been doing so. The Eugene O'Neills and the Tennessee Williams, etc. But to see really important works by new playwrights is so important for the lifeblood of theater. So I hope that even though Southern Rep may be ringing down its curtain for the final time, that perhaps somebody else will be able to pick up where they left off and perhaps be as important for the theater community as Southern Rep was.
I'd like to comment on that by saying also there was another thing that Southern Rep did. And one of the things that Southern Rep did so very, very well, and that was to get the community involved, to use more of the community actors and the community set designers and costume designers and lighting designers. As a matter of fact, it really did feel like home. But the other thing Southern Rep did was to not just deal with the new plays, but deal with plays that also address the issues of the day, but plays that also dealt with living in the South. Right. Whether it was Louisiana or Southeast Texas or Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, whatever. And that is something that is going to be missed. However, I do believe when it comes down to new play absence, I do believe that No Dream Deferred may pick up the banner on that. Introducing new plays to the public.
Yeah, I know that they will, and I know there are other groups like the NOLA Project that do new plays. Right. I think what was so special about Southern Rep before I even knew about Fringe festivals, so I want to say they did it before Fringe festivals kind of like was a thing, but they would have the New Play Festival, and that was every year, and it would include full-length plays, it would include your short 5 to 15-minute plays, and it really gave an opportunity for students and young writers just to get their voices heard, and that was so important. So I hope that somebody can do a new play festival again too, not just full lengths being produced, but
right.
And Lisa Moore, actually, who's now like a famous playwright, she was, I remember doing one of her plays at the New Play Festival. So.
Do any of you remember? And by the way, Ryan was invited. He declined. He said he couldn't make it tonight. But Ryan Roulette, who now is working out in, I believe, Washington D.C. area. In a theater, he was also an important force because not only did he take Southern Rep into an area where they became very, very, I would say, successful in terms of their budget and getting people to come out, etc. But he also trained Amy to be his associate, and of course after he left, she took over. So I'm wondering if you remember anything that Ryan had done while he was here, or any of the things that had occurred on his watch prior to Amy taking over. Anybody remember?
I knew Ryan because I worked with him when he was a student of Rosary's at Loyola. I did one of his senior thesis. And so I worked with him as a director, but it was shortly after that. And I think while Ryan was artistic director of Southern Rep, that I had moved to New York. So I don't know. I know Ryan was great and did a lot for the theater, but I don't have any specifics.
Tommye, any recollections at all?
I don't actually.
Okay.
I do remember Ryan, the man.
Yes.
And I do remember directing. I don't know. I think it was Lady Did. It was this Bar and Grill. That was the one with Troy Bechet and Willie Metcalf.
Okay.
And Dinah Was came under Ryan.
Wow. You mentioned some great names there, performers. So, again, Southern Rep had the distinction of being, I think, when I brought the Theater Critics Association down here in 2015, in conjunction with the Tennessee Williams New Orleans Literary Festival, people were impressed. I think they were doing, if I'm not mistaken, Suddenly last summer, it was at that time, and still carried with it. A major equity contract, that they had equity players. Not everybody had the same number of equity players that they had in its casting. Several theaters, of course, had the contract that was in place for equity that would allow a few equity players, et cetera. But really, Southern Rep had quite a number of people that were really top-notch actors who were part of the Actors Equity and the union, as it were, and basically did a good job of keeping them employed. And we were really happy to see that.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Alan, because that's the other thing, that the new plays, and then the fact that it was, when I started in the early 90s, it was the only what we would call like professional theater.
Right.
Because it was the only theater where the majority of the actors were paid. I think I was still paid even before I became an equity membership candidate, but that was where I started my candidacy and started building up my points to get my equity card, which I then got when I moved to New York. But that was Southern Rep, and I think the only other theater that did that at the time was Swine Palace, which wasn't in New Orleans.
That's
it was
Baton Rouge, right? Baton Rouge.
That's right.
Yeah, it was in Baton Rouge, exactly.
That's right.
So that was, and it was very important, I know, to Rosary and Dick, that they really supported the performers as well as the crew, and that everybody was not just doing it as a hobby, but they were actually getting paid to do it.
So I guess we can go down. I will mention that I did invite Aimee to come in. Aimee took over, I think, 2007, and she had a rather long reign from 2007. I guess was what, about 12 years, approximately. 12.
To COVID, yeah.
Yeah. So and she left. She announced she was leaving at the end of 2020, if I'm not mistaken. That she was not in place in 2021. I think that we had was it Sacha Grandois who was in there for a bit, and Sam Sweet came in towards the end as a interim artistic director. Although I never did actually.
Executive director.
Yeah, I never got to meet Sam, but I heard he was in place, and they were trying to do some things. And of course, Kathy Babb was a member of the board and became chair of the board, and she was trying her best to keep things going.
You're talking about Karen.
Karen Babb. Yeah.
Yes.
I have to say that one of the things, interestingly enough, when I talked with Cameron-Mitchell Ware, who I hope is coming in now because he's supposed to show up for the next few minutes. He's supposed to talk to us about what his position is, et cetera. So I hope he got the invite. I'm going to send him another invite in another second or two. But essentially, I think, again, that there's a lot to be said about all that Aimee did. And of course, she got a great deal of criticism towards the end of her reign. Lauren Turner, who was with No Dream Deferred, had a famous article that was done in one of the magazines and had leveled a bit of criticism, none of which was necessarily proven or disproven. This is the court of popular opinion more than anything else. But a lot of the questions about what was going on at Southern Rep were revealed. And I know, Tommye, you had mentioned that you wanted to address some of the questions about the latter part of what was going on. I'm not sure if that was necessarily the major problem that occurred towards the end. I really do believe that a lot of what the problem with Southern Rep towards the end had to do with the finances, that they had really stretched themselves financially. But again, I may be wrong. I'm not a person who was on the board, but I knew that they had overrun their budget a bit, and to the point where they were trying to have public GoFundMe campaigns and things of that sort to try to get themselves back fiscally righted. And then COVID happened. It was the perfect storm of how to kill a theater, bring COVID in. But
yeah, I think if I remember right, that campaign started, and it was literally like a week before when everything shut down.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Really bad timing.
And I know AMA, when I talked to her, I said, well, how could you go that much over budget? She says, well, everything ran so expensive. It was much more than we expected. And I don't know that she was trying to make excuses, but I think, she didn't expect it to be as bad as it was. And when finally, it's sort of those people who get involved with extending their credit, and what they do is they put everything on credit, and they look and they see how much they owe, and then they start paying the minimum, just the minimum.
I want to take it to another level.
Okay.
And that level being that, which is something that happens so much here in New Orleans, which is really a shame. And that is that the theater companies, when they especially those who, look, New Orleans is over 60% African American, and there's still not one African American theater that has a home. So we depend on getting houses from let's just say the established theaters. That being said, even those established theaters, what they do and did do was this. Somehow they feel that students and people who are trained who they teach, by the way, at Loyola and Tulane and UNO and Dillard in theater are not good enough to work in their theaters. So rather than nurture those people who are in those universities and in those colleges, they tend to want to bring these people from out of town. Well, New Orleans, you've never heard anybody address New Orleans and identify New Orleans as a city. They always say it's a nice town. And a town is very different from a city. A town, everybody knows everybody. People go to the theater here not just for the show, but because they want to see their family. They want to see their best friend. But when you start hiring professionals to come in to do the job that those who are here are capable of doing, then not only are you cutting these people off, so they feel they have to go to New York, Chicago, and leave this ground, building ground. They feel they have to leave. When you start doing that, you also isolate your funders. Those people who fund those theaters not because they want to see Joe Blow come in from New York, but because my granddaughter is in the Miracle Worker. So I think that is the demise, and has been the demise of that, added to some of the demise of Southern Rep, and even to the point, I just did house at La Petite Theater. The light designer, the set designer, the costume designer was from Lafayette, but the set designer, light designer, director, all from out of town. The choreographer, and I'm saying, okay. So I think people need to know that if you are getting federal funds and calling yourself a community theater, you need to invest in the community and trust that the universities and the colleges that are training these students are doing a damn good job.
Here, yes. And I remember doing shows at Southern Rep and then going to New York and thinking like, wow, people in New Orleans are more talented than some of the people I'm seeing here. And so I agree, that's part of the problem, is like this outsourcing when we have the talent here.
And so that eats up your budget, Alan. That eats up your budget. Because not only do you have to pay them New York fees and union fees, but you also have to put them up, fly them in, and feed them. There you go.
I agree that's a problem. Now, again, I think that it's also nice to be able to occasionally, not all the time, but occasionally, to bring people in, like as an example, when they did something rotten here, the people who were at Le Petit were able to bring in the two people who had been on the national tour of Something Rotten, and they were able to work hand in glove with our local actors, which I thought was wonderful, that they had the experience of working with those kind of talented actors. But, again, you're right. most of the community theaters should be drawing from the community and not from other communities.
But I'm not talking about the actors.
You're talking about the creative team too.
I'm talking about the directors, the lighting designers.
Right.
I'm talking about the designers.
Right.
I will say that when I did A Louisiana Gentleman, which was one of Rosary's plays, she did bring in 2 directors that co-directed, and they were from New York. And I do think that was a great thing, like you're saying, to have, like, it wasn't the whole creative team, but I learned so much from them. I'm still friends with them. When I went to New York, I had these contacts. I did staged readings for them. I did a premiere of a show that one of them was a playwright. And so it did give me and others who were in that show, Becky Allen was another one in that show too, yes, the opportunity to work with these professionals from other towns. But I agree, it shouldn't be for every position, and I know that sometimes that was happening not only with the creative team but also with the performers too, and that can eat up the budget. And I think there was also, when Southern Rep moved into that space, the hope that they would be able to rent it out for events and stuff. And I don't know if that ever happened, but yeah.
No, I don't think they did that much as far as that goes. But again, I think you have to get back to. That's okay. That's all right. You know, sometimes the dogs get a little upset. Is the dog okay?
He's Soline? Fine.
Okay.
Somebody walked by the front door. So,
oh, yes. Okay. That's a loud dog. I think you're well protected. That's one thing I can tell you. Well, again, I know I didn't want to keep you the whole night, so I did say I would only keep you for about a half an hour. I'm still waiting to hear back from Cameron-Mitchell Ware, who, of course, as I mentioned, will be talking to us about the sunsetting of the theater. I guess I'm going to ask you, you know, if you would, in just a little bit of the time that you've got remaining, if Tomi, I'm going to start with you. Could you tell me about what your most pleasant memory of being with Southern Rep was, and then if you if there was something that you wanted to add that you wish might have changed, that wasn't necessarily your most favorite thing.
I don't think I have an unpleasant moment. I enjoyed Southern Rep when it was really under the in the hands of Rosary and Dick and Ryan. I enjoyed there. I always wanted to go there. It was always pleasant. My favorite memory was working with Trish McLean, Soline's mother, and dealing with that space and the different things that Chad, can't remember his last name, that Chad and Dane Rhodes and that John Grimsley, the creations, how they would create in such a small space. In terms of my I could say that since Ryan left, not one time did May ever asked me to direct at Southern Rep.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And I did. We did broach that subject once, and she and I said, I just want to know what's the issue, Yeah. I've directed at this theater every year for 9 consecutive years. What's the issue after Katrina? And she just merely said, well, I just heard that you were difficult to work with. And I said, well,
okay.
All right. So that was it. So, yeah. So those are my pros. Is I loved it under Rosary and Ryan and Dick, and I had no opportunity to work with them after May took charge.
All right. Well, and again, like I said, I was looking for something that you would have liked to change, and that would have been one of the things you could have changed had it been in your power to do so. So again, yes. I appreciate that. And Tomi, I appreciate your you being here. Again, I know we have you've got some things coming up. I know you have you're going to be directing a play soon, right? Next.
Well, I have a couple of things coming up. Voices is going to be doing its historical outdoor drama, which is Le Code Noir, which was written by myself as well as Mark R. Sumner. We have the rights and are going to be doing Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And then there's something else that's in the pot that's stirring. I will say this. Did you see Fly?
I did.
You
Absolutely,
did
I saw it.
Well,
Absolutely.
I think the most exciting thing about Fly is that the World War II Museum has commissioned Fly for February of 2023.
That's fantastic news. I thought that it was a wonderful opportunity to get some people at the National World War II Museum to do it. They're going to do it in BB Stage Door Canteen.
Yes, they are.
That is a small stage, though, to work on.
I know.
So
I've seen it. So
you're going to be challenged to.
I know. My mind is already working on it.
Right. Well, again, that was a fantastic production, and again, you to be congratulated for that. It for those of you who didn't know, it was the story of the Tuskegee Airmen, and again, it talked a lot about the sacrifices that they made, as well as the important battles that they fought, not in the battlefield, but on the ground. And so again, I appreciate you doing that. So Tomi, good luck with that, and I will thank you again for being here tonight. I'm gonna say goodbye to you, and then I'm gonna say goodbye to Soline as well. So you take care.
Bye-bye.
And Soline, before we let you go, please tell me if there's anything that you remember, your memory of Southern Rep in terms of your most pleasant memory, and if there was anything you would have changed, maybe.
I have so many wonderful memories of Southern Rep, and I learned so much there. Rosary O'Neill taught me everything I know about networking. I think that also might be part of the problem of what happened after she left. She was so good and could talk anybody into doing anything for her theater, and that's amazing to have and an amazing skill to be able to do. But probably my best memories come from The Miracle Worker. I got to work with Maria Mason, Joe Warfield, just these amazing people. And every show that I did at Southern Rep, everybody felt like family. So when I got the announcement about last week about Southern Rep closing, it really feels kind of like a death in the family because there's so many memories there. I guess another wonderful memory is that Rosary was like so good at raising funds and stuff. She took some of her plays to Europe, and I got to go with Louisiana Gentlemen to Paris and Bonn, Germany. I was on the top of the Eiffel Tower with Becky Allen. Like, does anybody have a better memory than that? So it was just a wonderful time. Galas that brought in money too to help support the theater that were at Antoine's. So I guess what I would like to have seen be done differently is maybe be in way to have gotten a space where rather than paying rent every month, it would have been something that we owned, that Southern Rep owned, and that we could then use for our own galas and to start things like the new play festival again and really keep those youth and new voices coming in at all times. So
I do remember when Amy had been in the process of trying to pick a new place, that I said, well, Amy, why are you going to pick a new place? Why are you going? She says, well, after 6 years, the board gets very antsy. They want to have a place, and I almost felt like she was almost grabbing at the St. Rose de Lima opportunity because she kind of felt pressure, and I don't know whether or not it was right or wrong, but I just that's what I kind of felt, and I don't know whether or not that was.
It must have been hard to be like a nomadic kind of theater, although I do think that also brought out some great opportunities. I know I read about like a site-specific performance of Streetcar Named Desire, which I was in New York, so didn't get to see.
Right. Michalopolis, right?
Yeah,
it was great.
Yes.
It was great.
Yeah,
wonderful spot there. And they also did work at the CAC, and they did work at other places temporarily, jumping from one place. But they really wanted a home. But I have to tell you, the whole idea of having a home, brick and mortar home, has been proven to not necessarily be absolutely bottom line necessary. Look at the NOLA project. They don't have a brick and mortar place, and they've been doing quite well. They've been receiving national grants, et cetera, and they've been improving their numbers of productions every year, and doing quite well without having to put the investment in time and effort, and of course, anytime you buy a building, you're having to pay taxes, having to get insurance, having to worry about liability, things of that sort.
Yeah, and I have to say, some of the coolest performances that I've seen in my life have been these site-specific performances that you're traveling around a park. Or I went to one in New York City called the Angel Project, where you literally got a Metro card with your ticket because you went to different spaces around the city. And so, yeah, there are different ways, I think, that you're right. Without a brick and mortar theater, you can still survive. So I'm hoping maybe something will happen and Southern Rep will come back someday. Well,
I don't know that Southern Rep's going to come back, but I will say that perhaps something will come up in its place. I know that people at No Dream Deferred are planning on doing a new play festival that they're doing for Black playwrights that they announced. And I know that there are going to be other companies that will probably come up in the interim that will if not replace, maybe do some things that Southern Rep had done. I hate to say replace, because really it's a different animal. I mean, Southern Rep did not replace anybody. They came of themselves. They were an entity that was organically achieved. And Rosary will tell you, she'll be the first one to say, why did you start Southern Rep? And she'll say, I needed a place where I could act, because that back in the day, she wanted to be able to perform, and she wanted to have a place, and not any opportunities were being made available to her. So that was why Southern Rep got started, for less than altruistic purposes, but it then took on a life of its own.
It's true. And I should say too about Rosary, I don't know, I still use the Actor's Checklist, which is the book that she wrote. And it's great because it's literally a checklist that gets you to go through your whole backstory. And I have notebooks from when I was a kid filled with all of my handwritten answers to questions about that, so I could prepare for roles. So yeah. She's an amazing woman. And I'm very grateful that she founded Southern Rep and that I got to work there.
Well, and Tomi, I'm just going to say this right now. I am going to read the note that came from Cameron-Mitchell Ware. That was the announcement, and I'm going to let both of you all go. But I have reached out. I've sent a couple of links off. I've actually called while Soline was just on. I called Cameron-Mitchell's phone. He is nowhere to be seen. I'm not quite sure why. And again, I'm not going to make an excuse one way or the other. He knew it was tonight, and I expected to have him on. He promised me he would be. He told me he had some parameters of what he wanted to work with, which was he didn't want to talk about the history. He wanted to talk about his last 3.5 months or so he's been working with Southern Rep, which I honored him with that promise. And again, why he's not here, I don't know. Hopefully he will come up, but we only have about 18 minutes left of the show. And if he doesn't show up, that's so be it. That's the way it goes. Again, I offered the people, an opportunity to participate, and I appreciated him saying he was going to be here. But it's one of those things we just have to deal with.
Sometimes it's hard to bury a friend, and sometimes you decide not to attend the services, and sometimes you attend to just do it privately and not ready to talk about it. Yeah, well, but he told me he was ready, and I'm not making excuses or trying to say that, but the point is that I don't know how the whole process is accomplished. What I wanted him to talk about was he talked about sunsetting a theater, and when it's appropriate to sunset a theater, and he was going to talk and address several of the issues that we raised slightly tonight about where Southern Rep had been getting some criticism, et cetera. So I was hoping he would pick up that baton and run with it, but he's not here to do that. So instead, I'm gonna ask you all to indulge me. I'm gonna go ahead and read this announcement, and I'm gonna let you all leave the room, and then I'll just probably close the show out a little bit earlier than I would. But and then I do have the opportunity for people who want to talk. We do have the opportunity for people to leave word. You have to go to facebook.com/StreamYard, and that way we can see your name, because if not, it's just going to show up as a Facebook user. But if you want to go to that site and put in that
particular link, it'll allow you to put your name in, so we'll be able to see who you are. But if you want to put some comments up, we can post those as well in the interim. But let me go ahead and read this. And Soline, thank you for being here tonight, and Tomi, thank you for being here tonight. I'm gonna close out with just the words that were announced by Cameron-Mitchell Ware, and talk a little bit about the end of Southern Rep. But thank you for being here tonight. Okay.
Thank you, Alan.
All right. Thank you. All right. And again, same thing for everybody. Hope that you'll stick around while I read the words that we have here. Again, it says Southern Rep lowers final curtain after 36 years of artistic achievement. Southern Rep Theater, a leading arts organization in the Gulf South, is closing after 36 years of artistic achievement. The challenges of managing a local theater company over recent years proved too difficult to overcome. Quote, "We lower the final curtain with sadness and acknowledge this great loss to the community, but also with a sense of pride in Southern Rep's long history," says Karen Swaim Babin, President, Board of Directors, since late 2020. "We celebrate and honor Southern Rep's long history. Unfortunately, financial pressures and other considerations during these extraordinary times have outpaced the available resources. With heavy hearts, we've exhausted all options to serve New Orleans with our best, and we must acknowledge that closing is our most honorable option." Playwright and scholar Rosary O'Neill founded Southern Rep in 1986. From the beginning, the company presented critically acclaimed, innovative productions that uplifted, inspired, and entertained audiences. It quickly became a creative force in regional and national theater. Later, Ryan Roulette and A.M.A. Hayes continued that fine tradition. Along with an occasional musical and comedy, Southern Rep tackled serious subjects that illuminate the human condition. Plays address racism, Son of a Man Coming Through, slavery, When Father Comes Home from the War, homophobia and family dysfunction, home, freedom, the morality of war, Grounded, and discrimination, Flowers for Hallie, about Mahalia Jackson. Countless memorable performances have graced the Southern Rep stage, Babin says. So many talented actors, playwrights, and theater professionals have lent their talents to this company. We also applaud our local group of subscribers, supporters, and audiences. We appreciate everyone who is part of the Southern Rep experience. We are inspired by our community's continued work to offer excellent theater to our deserving region, continues Babin. We sincerely hope that Southern Rep has earned a special place in the fabric of the theater community during its 36 years. Our desire is for our legacy to live on in the spirits of the theater professionals who have been part of Southern Rep and the memories of outstanding theater we have offered. And again, that is the statement that was issued by Southern Rep, and again, issued through Cameron-Mitchell Ware. Cameron-Mitchell Ware is charged with sunsetting the theater now. For the last 3.5 months, he's been working with the board. As he explained it, the reason that he was called in as a professional was to deal with the board in terms of finding out where they were, where they wanted to be, and where they were perhaps going, and what the best options were for them. And as they said, sadly, in the press release, they decided that the most honorable course was to shutter the theater, bring down that final curtain. So again, Southern Rep, one of our most outstanding theater companies, will be no more here. The whole process of how you do that, how you take it out of the public space, was going to be explained by Cameron-Mitchell Ware, but hopefully, we'll have an opportunity later on. He'll maybe have an opportunity to return. But I, for one, am sorry that it has such a short run, so to speak, towards the end, that we didn't really get a chance to commiserate. We didn't have the opportunity to mourn its loss. It just sort of came out of nowhere. I will say one thing that sort of flies in the face of conventional thinking. We all knew that Southern Rep was on very, very shaky financial grounds, but apparently, according to Cameron-Mitchell's sharing of information with me, the PPP money that they received during the COVID crisis actually kept them afloat for several months longer than they might have been around had the eventuality of having to make this decision come around without that money. So in a sense, COVID shuttered them, but also COVID kept them alive in a sense. So we may have to rethink that, and that perhaps if they'd been able to hold on, they might have been able to come back. But they made that decision, and that's where we are now. So again, we're going to shut down about 10 minutes early tonight. Again, I appreciate everybody being with me tonight who was here, Tomi, and of course Soline. And I have to say that even though Cameron-Mitchell wasn't here, that it is a sad night. It's a sad time. Just like we've lost friends and family during COVID, this is another casualty, and we're going to have to say goodbye and move on. But theater is not dead. Theater is very much alive, and the fact that Southern Rep is gone, we should honor the memory of Southern Rep for what they were able to do all those many years, 36 years, as a vital part of the New Orleans theater scene, and that we can always look to their legacy for others to follow and to emulate. And hopefully the very best of what Southern Rep was about will continue with people like No Dream Deferred, Voices in the Dark, Repertory, Le Petit, and others. So hopefully, this is not the end for theater. That is just a minor bump in the road, and that we will have others to follow that will elevate us and inspire us to come. So for NOLA Theater Talk, this is Alan Smason, wishing you and yours a very good night. And again, take care, and I'll see you at the theater.